into the room. You're free to just be you. Tell me your story, and we will go exploring. Let's explore together. Let's explore together.
Hello and welcome to Sack in the City. I'm your host, Teresa Marie. Cross-dressers have been around for centuries. They are mentioned all over Shakespeare as well as Greek mythology and Hindu. Not only that, but the list of historian figures that has been mentioned as cross-dressers is a long list, including a very, very famous director who was known to always cross-dress when he was directing because it made him feel more comfortable. Here to discuss this and so much more is Jessica. Jessica, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. So, you are a cross-dresser, is that correct?
I am a cross-dresser.
Yes. Now, let me ask you this. Because cross-dresser is the term that society has used to describe somebody who dresses in the clothes that are opposite of their gender. Part of me thinks it's kind of humorous because I'm like, are we assigning a gender to like pants or dresses now? Because like, wow. I mean, I do have certain clothes that I call like Sheila or Brandon, but I mean, it seems like really funny that we think of certain fashion as male or female. And so with that, years ago, they came up with this reference, this name, cross-dressers. Now, you were born male, is that correct?
I was born male,
okay.
Correct.
You enjoy living a life dressed up as Jessica.
Yes, I identify as male and I also identify as female.
Okay.
But I also identify as neither.
Okay.
So I'm kind of this weird gender fluid thing.
Gender fuck.
GF represent. So
I couldn't do that. I'm too dyslexic to handle that.
I don't think I did it right either.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm not really a big fan of the gender binary, but in the traditional gender binary, there's male, there's female. I get it. Most people in our society identify as one or the other, but we also assign a gender to bathrooms, clothing, locker rooms, everything, mannerisms, personality traits. I don't like that. It's very
and it's
confining.
Funny because it's like if we talk about, assigning gender, a lot of times it comes down to fashion. And if you look at fashion just in the last 20 years, let alone the last 100, it has constantly changed. So there are many times throughout our civilization that we could look back and say, oh, dude was super girly, or she was super masculine, right? I mean, so it is very interesting that you bring that up. I mean, in the 80s, like all the rock bands had long hair and Aquanet and eyeliner.
Do you remember in the 80s when men could have an earring, but only one, and it had to be in their left ear? They couldn't have two, and if they had one, it certainly couldn't be in their right ear because then they were gay and not cool.
Yeah, right meant gay.
Right meant gay.
And left just meant hip.
I think unless you were in the UK, then it was the opposite. But that didn't count for like every other country in the world.
Oh man, get your passports. And it's so interesting because a lot of this just comes down to, I think, interpretation. And a lot of that has to do also with cultural standards. So you know, we're in the United States, we're in Sacramento, California, but if we were to travel the globe and talk about this same conversation throughout different cultures in different countries, it's vastly different.
Probably
there are
even
plenty of them, not even plenty of them. Every culture
even in this
has
country.
crosser dressers. Yes, exactly. I said crosser dressers.
Crosser dressers.
Just I really always like that. So it is something that I don't know if people realize the history or how far back it goes, or that it is literally in every country around the globe. So let me ask you this. Let me back up just a second.
Sure.
Let's talk about Jessica growing up.
Okay.
How was your upbringing?
My upbringing was actually pretty normal. I was pretty lucky to have, you know, a fairly normal childhood, whatever that means.
Sure.
But I mean, there were drawbacks to it and everything, but I still was pretty privileged.
Yeah.
You know, growing up. I was an only child living with a single mom, and used to put on her makeup and her clothes when she didn't know. I would go sneak. And then, of course, I'd be totally ashamed of it afterwards. And there was not a male role model in my life, so I always really wanted to have that. And so when I would go put on makeup and women's clothes, it would be like, oh, there's this extra part of myself that's wonderful and undiscovered. But then it was always followed up with, well, I'm a man. I'm going to be a man. I'm a boy. I'm going to be a man, so I need to be masculine. I need to shed this whole desire to put on eyeliner and mascara and eyeshadow and dresses and be a manly man.
Do you remember about what age you were when you first started putting on your mom's makeup and, you know, just really enjoying that? And
5?
5? And at 5, did you feel like more you were playing dress up, or did you feel like you were getting in touch with yourself? Like,
yes. Both.
Both?
Both.
Fair.
Because playing dress up is fun for everybody, even if you don't have any gender sort of identity issues or concerns or whatever.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's normal for anybody. But I always felt like, you know, there's a little more to it.
Sure. Was there any part of you that maybe idolized your mom and so you just wanted to dress up like her? Or do you think that there was more to it, or both? Or
I haven't really thought about it from that angle. That's a possibility.
Sure.
But I still feel like even if my mom wasn't the sole parent in the picture, I probably would still be the same.
Jessica would have been born
I
regardless.
suspect. Yeah.
Awesome. So how old were you? You were 5 when you started like dabbling in makeup and dressing up. How old were you when you first like consciously remember, I want to dress up as a female? And when I say that, society's view on what a female is.
I remember being about 8 years old, something around there, and Halloween was coming up. And I remember having a talk at the kitchen table with my mom about Halloween and my costume that I was thinking of. And I told her, Mom, I specifically remember this conversation. Mom, I want to be a girl for Halloween, but I don't want to wear like clown makeup, because I'd been a clown for Halloween, I think the previous Halloween. I don't want to wear clown makeup. I want to wear real girl makeup. That's my first thought of...
How did your mom respond?
I don't think she really even acknowledged it. It was kind of like a passing, okay, yeah, whatever.
I'm hearing you.
I'm hearing you, but I'm doing something else. And
Yeah.
It's not even a big deal.
Yeah.
I guess that reaction is much better than... What have you said? What have you done? What are you thinking? Oh my God, what is my boy becoming? Something like that reaction, because we weren't, you know, religious, conservative growing up like a lot of unfortunate people.
Are you looking at me right now?
No.
So-
Actually, that was not intended to you. That actually, no. I know that's how I came across.
Nobody else is here. No, I'm just joking.
No. A
Everybody
lot of
calm down.
unfortunate people grew up in a very intolerant environment.
Correct.
That
Yes.
really wasn't me. It wasn't intolerant from a perspective of like adhering to a Jesus Christian.
When your mom reacted, it wasn't like you're going to hell.
No.
Like, how
there was
dare
none of
you
that.
say that you're going to go
There was
to
none
hell.
of that.
Right.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this, because flash forward many years, you're an adult.
I am.
I kind of hope so, because we kind of need your consent for this video.
Oh, I don't think I've signed that yet.
Has she met Jessica? Does she
Yes.
know about Jessica?
Yes.
Is she cool with Jessica?
She's cool.
Does she think Jessica's a bitch? I mean, what's going on?
She might, but I would just give her a hug and. So I came out to my mom when I was about late 20s sometime.
Okay.
I remember it was Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. I'm trans. And yeah, her initial reaction, like the instant second after I told her, was concern. But not like you're going to hell concern, more like, oh, I'm concerned about what sort of environments you're getting yourself into. But it was really, I mean, same day, probably within an hour, she was like, I love you. I'm sorry if I reacted poorly. You're my kid, and I love you no matter what, and I support you.
It's probably like a little bit of minute of
Mama bear.
adjustment and, adapting, if you will. So, it's a change. It's a little bit different. So that's cool. She chose love.
She chose love.
So I really love that. Love loves to love.
Love.
I went to go say tongue twister, and that's when my tongue actually got twisted.
Twung tister? Twisted sister.
That's how Gene Simmons says it. So you come out to your mom, you're in your late 20s, she's totally cool about it. At that point, were you totally cool about it? Had you fully accepted who you were and embraced it? And
That's a fantastic fucking question.
fucking thank you.
I would tend to say yes, except that at that time I had a girlfriend, and that girlfriend was very much struggling to accept that her boyfriend also had another side to him who was not male.
Right.
And she was in this Overeaters Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or one of those anonymous groups. And she had a sponsor, and she would talk to her sponsor about her relationship with me, and her sponsor would say things like, and she'd tell me these things, well, you need to watch yourself because, those kinds of things can be really unexpected and what's the word?
Triggered?
Huh?
Not triggered.
Not triggered.
But unexpected
yeah.
and unstable.
Unstable, yep. And
Yeah.
you don't know what you're getting into, and be very careful. And so she was all full of this super hyper caution that was unnecessary.
I didn't realize
And
that
so-
sponsors were counselors. I mean, I know that they're there to listen to people. I just didn't realize that they were a therapist.
I don't know what that
Yes.
relationship is about.
Okay.
Thankfully.
Fair.
But to those who have it, fantastic. I hope you're getting
If you
the
get a
most
rock,
out of it.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But
and
seems like he was giving a lot of
She-
advice.
yeah,
she
she
was
was-
giving a lot of advice. Oh, see, I just assumed.
Gender.
Anyway, so did your ex-girlfriend end up coming around, or
No. So I think your initial question was whether I accepted myself ultimately.
Yes.
At that age.
Yeah.
And I would say yes and no. Yes, in that I knew that when I had a partner of any gender, they needed to accept all of me.
Right.
And the fact that we're in our late 20s and she didn't accept me, and I'd already been through that before.
Right.
I didn't really have space for that in my life.
And it had taken you a long time to get here.
Yes.
You know?
And
yeah.
and I understand that somebody who was just sort of coming into that, it was new for them. There was an adjustment period, and oh my gosh, this is not something I've dealt with
Right.
as I had.
Right.
But yeah, the judgment part of it was pretty severe and hard, and the fact that her sponsor, who she looked up to and sort of mentored her, was telling her be cautious of this
Right.
weird sort of thing.
And I'm sure there is a level of harshness because this is somebody that you chose to be vulnerable with. And, you kind of got shut down when you were open and vulnerable with them. And that's tough. I mean, regardless, if you've been in Jessica's shoes or not, I think that we can all relate to that. And that is something really hard. It's hard for us to be vulnerable.
Sure.
And then when you open ourselves up and we're like, oh, closed door, you're just like, oh.
Well, and
so,
I had
yeah.
been to therapy before that for
Okay.
other issues. And,
Okay.
and a therapist told me, one of my favorite therapists of all time, like I've been to several, but at that time I'd been to one, and he was really, really, really awesome and really connected with me in a way that I hadn't connected with a therapist before. And he said, vulnerability leads to closeness. And that really stuck with me. So even
To closeness.
closeness. Vulnerability leads to closeness.
I think that's beautiful.
I do
and
too.
Still really difficult.
Still very difficult.
So you mentioned something a few minutes ago. You called yourself trans,
Yes.
but you are not transgender.
Well, that depends on whose definition we're talking about.
Sure. So I'd really like to talk about that for our audience
Sure.
because I know there's people that are really like, whoa, they think, oh, you want to dress up as a female, you're, transgender and you want to sex change or vice versa and X, Y, and Z. And
That was sort of a pun because of chromosomes. XY, XX.
I wish I was that smart. So anyway, let's talk about that though. You describe yourself as trans.
Yes.
Can you expand on that, please?
Sure. So my understanding, this is not the gospel or the dictionary definition by any means. My understanding of the word trans is short for transgender. Transgender is an umbrella term
Okay.
encompassing all kinds of people who identify all kinds of ways. And my understanding of gender identity is it really comes down to the person and how they identify.
Okay.
So if you tell me you're a cis female, so non-trans, then I accept you as a cis female.
What is, again, for our audience, cis?
So
what does that
cis
mean?
is-
CIS.
Your gender identity and orientation and appearance, presentation, all conforms with your assignment of gender at birth. That's my understanding of the word cis.
So
cisgender.
your identity as far as like the gender you were born and how you identify is the same.
They're congruent.
That is cis. Okay,
Yes.
fantastic. Please continue.
So my understanding of the word trans is that it encompasses everyone who's not cis.
Okay.
Okay? And I could be wrong. Many people watching this may have very different understandings, and that's fine. Trans to me means anywhere from cross-dresser, so someone who identifies as, so this is how we opened our segment, and I am not fully a cross-dresser because I don't fully identify as male.
Right.
But
Thank you for saying that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so
that's important.
trans to me encompasses the people who have gone through the full transition and were assigned a gender at birth and do not identify with that, never identified with that, or at some point didn't identify with that later on in life, and transitioned, hormones, surgeries, face, genitals, whatever, and have come full circle. Well, 180, I guess is a better.
Okay, sure.
But also people who are gender fluid, gender non-conforming, gender fuck, gender queer. The whole however someone identifies, that's not cis. That's all within the trans umbrella. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. And I think that was a really good explanation. Although I'm going to have to Google, I'm going to have to like get my phone and be like, Google, gender fuck.
Do it.
Because that one I have not heard. I'll be honest. I've never heard gender fuck. To me, that just sounds like a fuck buddy.
Well,
and apparently it's more than that?
I don't think gender fuck has to do with a partner.
I hear fuck and I'm like, it must mean fuck.
I think gender fuck means not male, not female, fuck it all. I'm just me. And I identify as either both a little bit in some aspects or neither.
That kind of brings me into sexuality.
Okay.
Because gender and sex are two completely different things.
Very different.
And that's the thing that like really confuses a lot of people too. And I'll say this, with a fair reason. For people who are like exposed or had open conversations, I can see where, the lines can get hazy with them until they get explanation. And we're totally going to explain those things when we come back. Please stay tuned.